Hello, my name is Tori Smith, and I would like to do a child trafficking report for the 10 children that were murdered yesterday in Indianapolis. Friday, for some reason, seems to be the day that children are always brought to Indianapolis in this Luciferian human sacrifice network, which is operated by DARPA and the CIA. And yesterday in at the Indianapolis My Lab, 10 children were gang raped by a group of 51 males, a total of 138 times. And these 51 males, there were 10 from the Indianapolis Municipal Police Department, 6 from the Indiana State Police, there were 2 sheriffs there, 3 DARPA males, 3 CIA, 4 Army, 2 Indiana National Guardsmen, 12 state senators, 4 Indiana House of Representatives, and 2 CEOs, and there was a Navy general there who works at the Pentagon. And what I would like to do is talk about these children a little bit. And because recently I have been trying to file a complaint against Indiana Attorney General Greg Zeller and also Mike Pence. And when I went to the Whitley County the Whitley County prosecutor to ask, because I was told I needed a private attorney to file criminal charges, and I went to the Whitley County prosecutor and asked them what type of attorney I needed and explained why, and within 48 hours I was in jail being charged with a felony called public nuisance. And I guess it remains to be seen if people in Indiana who want to stop child trafficking are considered a nuisance. I certainly don't, and the children certainly don't either. Now, the Whitley County prosecutor, who I always have trouble pronouncing his name, it's Matthew J. Lechleiter. There's 3 people in Indiana that want me convicted. Matthew J. Lechleiter, Whitley County prosecutor, and the 2 men that I really want to file complaints against, Indiana Governor Mike Pence and also Indiana Attorney General Greg Zeller. Now, Greg Zeller has Greg Zeller has raped 20 children and murdered 2 of them in Luciferian human sacrifices. He also raped me 4 times, which, is very, and right there, that shows how much of a Nazi war criminal government we have. If you go to a legal authority because if you want to file a complaint against rape, instead of starting an investigation or instead of even taking a report, they just arrest the rape victim and throw them in jail on a $20,000 bond. That's so. This Matthew J. Lechleiter was also offered a position in the Indianapolis child trafficking operation, and he said yes. And but he has yet to rape a child yet. He probably will next weekend. And Greg Zeller raped 2 little girls yesterday. I have to refer to my list. I've got a list of 10 children, and it was child 5 and child 10. He raped a 6-year-old Brazilian girl, and then he raped a 7-year-old Brazilian girl. The 6-year-old Brazilian girl was murdered by both of them were murdered by CIA agents, and both of these CIA agents have a very, very long history of raping and murdering children with Mike Pence. Now, one of them has a tank in his basement where with 17 children, see now with CIA, I call him CIA agent number 1. He's raped 212 children now so far, and murdered 46 of them. But 17 of these children. See, normally DARPA disposes of the children's bodies. They usually grind them up into hamburger meat and put them in a Cargill meat supply. And but 17 of these children have been put in a tank, and the CIA he has a tank in his basement, and then he pours some kind of acidic chemical in. It's like an acid that he dissolves the children's bodies in, and then he flushes them down the toilet, down the Indianapolis sewage system. And Mike Pence raped 3 children. It was 2 little boys and a little girl, a 4-year-old Brazilian boy, and a 6-year-old Brazilian boy. And then number 8 was a 7-year-old Chinese girl. Mike Pence murdered the child number 6, a 6-year-old Brazilian boy. That was his 51st murder. And there were also a lot of state senators there. Indiana Senator Jim Banks. Now, he just won, quote unquote, won the Indiana primary. But what a lot of people don't know is all the winners of the primary were selected by the CIA, and it was 406 people of the NSA who rigged the election. And they have some kind of a formula or whatever, but all the winners of the political races are all selected in advance, and then they just use some kind of a formula because they have to wait and see how many people voted. It doesn't have to be exact because the machines can't be checked. That's why they switched over to the machines, because they just picked who won. But Jim Banks, he also raped this same 6-year-old Brazilian girl that Indiana Attorney General Greg Zeller raped. There's another state senator named Brent Waltz, and he raped 3 children, a Brazilian boy and a Chinese boy, and then also a 7-year-old Chinese girl. Now, Brent Waltz has a history of raping and murdering children as well. Not all of them murder the children. They have to be selected, and they actually compete for it. Another state senator's name is Roderick Bray. He raped 2 children, a 7-year-old Chinese girl and a 7-year-old Brazilian girl. And Ron Alting, another state senator, and he raped a 5-year-old Chinese girl. Did we get that right? Yeah, a 7-year-old, 5-year-old Chinese girl, child number 4. And Mike Delph also raped 2 children, a 4-year-old Chinese boy and a 7-year-old Brazilian girl. Brant Hirschman raped a 6-year-old Chinese girl. David Long raped 2 children, a 4-year-old Chinese girl and a 6-year-old Chinese girl. No, I'm sorry, a 4-year-old Chinese boy and a 6-year-old Chinese girl. A lot of these men will rape a boy and a girl. Pete Miller raped a 4-year-old Brazilian boy and a 4-year-old Chinese girl. Jeff Ratz also raped 2 children, a 4-year-old Chinese girl and a 5-year-old Chinese girl. Jim Smith, state senator, raped a 7-year-old Chinese girl. State Senator Joe Zakis raped a 7-year-old Brazilian boy, 6-year-old Brazilian boy that was murdered by Mike Pence. Brian Bosma, the House Speaker, he raped a 7-year-old Chinese boy twice. And Mike Braun, also of the Indiana House, raped 3 children, the 4-year-old Chinese girl, the 4-year-old Chinese boy, and the 7-year-old Brazilian girl. Another one from the House, Lloyd Arnold, he raped 2 children, a 6-year-old Brazilian girl and a 7-year-old Brazilian girl. Michael Aylesworth, also of the House, he raped a 7-year-old Chinese girl and a 5-year-old Chinese girl. And the CEO of Eli Lilly, John Lechleiter, I didn't put, some of these men, I didn't put how many children they raped, but he raped child number 2. He murdered a child number 2 during rape, a 4-year-old Chinese girl. Now, the CEO of Lucas Oil, Forrest Lucas, he murdered child number 3, a 4-year-old Chinese boy. There were Indiana State Police. Now there's 18 Indiana State Police who are involved in this child trafficking operation. 7 of them have a very, very long history of raping and murdering children. And, this one little girl, his name is Cassidy, and she had a whole thing about her mother used to call her Mama Cass, because her mother loved the Mamas and the Papas. So they had this whole thing going on. She used to call her little girl Cassidy. She was raped by all 7 of these Indiana State policemen. And then they murdered her, and then they buried her body 17 miles southwest of the Circle. But Douglas G. Carter is called the Superintendent of the Indiana State Police. And then the one Indiana State Policeman I call number 6, he murdered a 5-year-old Chinese girl. And then the 5th child, the 6-year-old Brazilian girl, was murdered by CIA agent number 2. And like I said, Mike Pence murdered the 6-year-old Brazilian boy during rape. And the next 3 children, a 6-year-old Chinese girl was murdered by the Indiana State Police, officer number 4. A 7-year-old Chinese girl murdered by Indiana State Police, officer number 2. Child number 9 was a 7-year-old Chinese boy, and he was murdered by an Indiana State Police, officer number 7 during rape. And then the last child, a 7-year-old Brazilian girl, was murdered by CIA agent number 1. The one that dissolves children in chemicals in his basement. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about what's going on in South America. SOCOM, which is called the United States Southern Command, is putting ads in newspapers because there are a lot of extremely poor people down there. It's in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, and Argentina. There are a lot of very, very poor, impoverished areas. And what they do is they say, oh, well, why not put your child up for adoption? We'll bring them to America. They'll have food and medicine. They'll get an education. We'll make sure they have housing. And instead, what they are is gang raped and murdered by the elite in this child trafficking operation. Now, the 6-year-old Brazilian boy that Pence murdered, both of the parents of this child were killed in a gang-related incident. They lived in a very poor neighborhood, and so did the aunt and uncle. And so he went to stay with his aunt and uncle, who were extremely poor, and they had very, very few resources, and they had 3 children of their own. And so they saw this newspaper ad, and they thought, well, wow, what a better life. Let's send this little boy to America, where he will receive all of these wonderful benefits. And, of course, they have no idea what really happened to him. And this little boy and his friends, they were all, just adorable children. And they made the best what they did with poverty. A lot of kids don't know, what poverty is. They're just born into poverty, and they just try to make the best. Their parents tell them, well, we don't have enough money to eat today or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of hardship. But then eventually they start seeing people with money, and they realize. But he and his friends would go to the beach every weekend, and they loved to play, and they loved to pass the ball around in the water and play catch with it or throw at it and hit each other with it. And there were always people, what he really liked about the beach, and so did this group of friends, a lot of the poorest children would go to the beach because there's a lot of really rich people down there, and they would always bring like a picnic basket with a bunch of food. And there were several adults, many adults, that the children would recognize. Why? Because they got food from every week. And they would get crackers and cookies. And, a lot of people down there who have a lot of money would purposely take beach food, like animal crackers or whatever, things that don't melt in the sun like chocolate. They would purposely take things like this and give them out to the children because they knew how poor the kids were. And so, he had a fairly good life down there, except for his parents being murdered and living in poverty. But this child was raped 43 times, and then he was murdered by Indiana Governor Mike Pence. And this was the 51st child that was Mike Pence has murdered in Luciferian human sacrifices. And if you're praying for this child trafficking operation to end, I say, may God please bless your hearts, because this is horrific. It's absolutely horrific to deal with all of this. And I was raped in 14 of these child trafficking locations. I was raped alongside children 32 times. And it's funny, I don't look all that handsome. I just looked in the mirror, and I look like a completely different person than I do on this little computer tablet. But it doesn't matter how I look or, how my body is. but there were a certain group of high-profile men that loved to sodomize me, and so they would paralyze me and drug me and such. And that's how I ended up being taken to these locations so many times. They never expected I would live. But initially, the CIA wanted me because they wanted to exploit my two biggest God-given talents, my psychic ability and also my ability to work with zero-point energy, which I've said many times. Now, the military, and if you want to know what that means, look up, there's an inventor called Nikola Tesla, Tesla, and he was a genius. And he used to work with the same energy, but he would work through devices and create what's called wireless electricity. Okay, I don't use any devices, which really makes the military angry, because they have to have devices for everything, high technology, anything. For years, they traded human children for technology, and that's how they have all this high technology equipment now. Now they just promise people from other places gold. Of course, they never deliver it because they don't have any. But the zero-point energy, I'm an energy worker and a light worker, and I've been doing this for over 20 years. And I learned about zero-point energy, and what happens is it flows through my head, heart, and hands directly from the heart of God, and it goes to the target, mostly for healing, for clearing, and it also can destroy artificial intelligence weapons, which they find very aggravating, because they send the artificial intelligence weapons to me, and God basically destroys them through me, and that makes them very angry. And so those are the two main reasons why I was abducted repeatedly over and over again. I was also raped by a lot of these men here in Indiana. Mike Pence, I was raped 9 times. Greg Zeller, I was raped 4 times. I was raped by these 2 CIA agents that rape and murder children. I was raped by all 14 original Indiana State Policemen who are participating in this. Now they've added 4 more. I wasn't raped by them. But it's really been a nightmare. I can't tell you how horrible it is to be raped alongside children and not be able to do anything about it. And that's why I do these reports every day. And I just got caught up for the week before, and we'll do a video report for all the days that I missed when they put me in jail for trying to stop this child trafficking operation. Thank you. God bless your hearts. I hope you have a wonderful day.